I thought for 8 years that I had the perfect marriage. Amanda and I had built what I believed was an unshakable foundation of love and trust. We had our dream home, thriving careers, and were finally ready to start a family. Then came that doctor appointment. The one that would reveal not just my devastating diagnosis, but an even more painful truth waiting for me at home. What I discovered that afternoon changed everything, transforming me from a heartbroken husband into someone determined to reclaim control of my final chapter. Before I dive into how my world collapsed and how I rebuilt it on my own terms, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about rising from the ashes of betrayal. My name is Casey, a 35-year-old senior software engineer at Tetra Tech Solutions, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Seattle. I specialized in cybersecurity infrastructure, earning a comfortable 6-figure salary that allowed Amanda and me to enjoy a privileged lifestyle in our suburban neighborhood. We had met during our sophomore year at Washington State University, where I was studying computer science and she was pursuing a degree in marketing. There was an instant connection between us, the kind you see in movies but rarely believe happens in real life. After graduation, we both landed entry-level positions at promising companies. We supported each other through career milestones, celebrated promotions, and eventually saved enough for a down payment on our dream home 3 years ago. It was a beautiful craftsman-style house with 4 bedrooms, an open-concept kitchen with granite countertops, and a spacious backyard. We had specifically chosen a home with extra bedrooms because starting a family had always been part of our plan. The first signs that something was wrong with my health appeared subtly. I began losing weight without trying, dropping from 185 pounds to 170 in just 2 months, despite maintaining my regular diet. Persistent fatigue followed, making my morning runs increasingly difficult until I had to abandon them altogether. Then came the abdominal pain, initially mild enough to ignore, but gradually intensifying, until over-the-counter pain relievers barely took the edge off. Amanda encouraged me to see a doctor after noticing how I would wince when sitting down or how I would push food around my plate at dinner. I finally relented when the pain became severe enough to wake me at night. My primary care physician ordered a battery of tests after our initial consultation, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes betraying concern. 2 days later, I was referred to a specialist who scheduled more comprehensive examinations. The speed with which appointments were arranged should have been my first clue that the medical team suspected something serious. On that fateful Tuesday, I sat in the sterile examination room at Northwest Medical Center, nervously tapping my foot against the linoleum floor. Amanda had offered to come with me, but I insisted she focus on her important client presentation, assuring her it was probably just an ulcer or gallstones. In retrospect, her relief at not having to accompany me should have raised questions. Dr. Patel entered with a manila folder and a somber expression that instantly made my stomach clench. He sat across from me, making direct eye contact as he delivered the news that would alter my existence. The CT scan, MRI, and biopsy had confirmed stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The disease had already metastasized to my liver and lymph nodes, leaving limited treatment options. The room seemed to spin as Dr. Patel explained my prognosis. 6 to 12 months, he said. The words floated around me like wisps of smoke, seemingly disconnected from reality. He discussed palliative care, potential clinical trials, and quality-of-life considerations, but his voice sounded distant, as though coming from underwater. I remember nodding mechanically as he outlined the next steps, including consultations with oncologists and pain management specialists. When he asked if I had someone who could drive me home, I muttered that I would be fine. Something in his expression suggested he knew I was far from fine, but he simply handed me a folder containing information about support groups and treatment centers. The drive home passed in a blur of numbness and disbelief. Traffic lights changed, other cars moved around me, but I felt removed from it all, as though watching my life through a foggy window. One thought gradually crystallized through the haze of shock: I needed Amanda. Despite our recent subtle disconnection, she was still my wife, my partner, the person who had promised to stand by me in sickness and in health. If there was ever a time I needed that promise fulfilled, it was now. I pulled into our driveway at 2:15 in the afternoon hours, before Amanda would normally return from her marketing firm. Her presentation was scheduled until 4, followed by client drinks. I had planned to prepare myself before sharing my diagnosis, perhaps even cook her favorite meal as a buffer before delivering the devastating news. As I approached our front door, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked about 50 yards down the street, a silver BMW that looked vaguely familiar. The mild curiosity this sparked was immediately overshadowed by my more pressing concerns. Inside our home, the silence was broken by faint sounds coming from upstairs. Music, perhaps, or the television left on in our bedroom. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step requiring conscious effort as exhaustion and emotional shock weighed on me. The sounds grew clearer as I approached our bedroom, and my heart began to race with a growing terrible suspicion. I recognized a laugh, Amanda's laugh followed by a deeper voice, murmuring something indistinct. The bedroom door was partially open. One gentle push was all it took to reveal the scene that would forever divide my life into before and after. Amanda was in our bed with Jack Harrison, my best friend, since college and current business partner at Tetra Tech. They were so engrossed in each other that several seconds passed before they noticed me standing in the doorway. The look of horror that crossed Amanda's face as our eyes met is something I will never forget. She scrambled to cover herself with the sheets, our wedding anniversary sheets, while Jack froze like a deer in headlights, his expression a mixture of guilt and fear. What surprised me most was my own reaction. Instead of the explosive rage I might have expected, I felt an eerie calm settle over me as though my body had reached its capacity for emotional processing that day. I did not yell. I did not throw things. I simply stood there staring at the two people who had just shattered what remained of my world. When I finally spoke, my voice was unnaturally steady. I asked how long this had been happening. Neither answered immediately. I noted Jack's car keys on my dresser, his watch on my nightstand. This was not their first time. This was comfortable. Routine. Without waiting for explanations or apologies, I turned and walked away. I heard Amanda calling my name, her voice frantic, but I continued down the stairs and out the front door. I got into my car and drove to the Marriott Hotel 20 minutes away, where I checked in for the night with nothing but the clothes on my back and my wallet. That first night alone in the hotel room, I stared at the ceiling as dual griefs washed over me in waves. The death sentence I had received hours earlier, and the death of my marriage happening simultaneously. My phone buzzed constantly with messages and calls from Amanda, which I ignored. Eventually, I turned it off entirely and allowed myself to break down in private crying until exhaustion finally pulled me into a restless sleep. The morning light, filtering through unfamiliar curtains, momentarily disoriented me until the events of the previous day came flooding back. I remained motionless in the hotel bed physically, and emotionally drained as conflicting emotions battled within me. Rage, heartbreak, fear, and betrayal competed for dominance, creating a storm of such intensity that I felt physically ill. My phone contained 37 missed calls and 22 text messages when I finally powered it on. Most were from Amanda, alternating between desperate apologies and demands to know where I was. There were also several from Jack, which I deleted without reading. The only message I responded to was from Thomas Carter, a corporate lawyer I had befriended during Tetra Tech's early legal structuring. We arranged to meet at his office that afternoon. I spent the intervening hours in a state of numb productivity, extending my hotel stay for a week and purchasing essential items from the mall across the street. The routine tasks provided a thin veneer of normalcy that helped me function despite the chaos within. Thomas greeted me with concern, noting my haggard appearance. I explained both situations, starting with the cancer diagnosis because it felt more clinical, more detached than the betrayal. When I described discovering Amanda and Jack together, his professional composure slipped momentarily, revealing genuine shock and sympathy. What followed was an education in vulnerability I had never anticipated needing. Thomas explained that without immediate action, my current estate planning would leave Amanda as the primary beneficiary of my life insurance policy, retirement accounts, and our joint property. The revelation that she would financially benefit from my impending death, possibly sharing my assets with Jack, triggered a cold anger that cut through my emotional fog. Thomas recommended several specialists in estate law and asset protection making calls on my behalf to arrange urgent consultations. Before I left his office, he suggested I gather evidence of the affair, advising that it could impact divorce proceedings in our state. That night I used my technical expertise to recover deleted messages from our shared cloud account. What I found was far worse than I had imagined. The affair had been ongoing for 14 months, predating even my first symptoms. I discovered conversations where they discussed their future together, including plans for after what they referred to as my eventual passing. In one particularly damning exchange from 3 months ago, Amanda had told Jack that she had noticed my health declining and wondered if they should wait to see if something natural might solve their dilemma before taking the risk of leaving me. Jack had agreed, suggesting that patience might yield the cleanest outcome for everyone. They had noticed my symptoms before I had fully acknowledged them myself. While I was ignoring warning signs, they were monitoring them, waiting for a natural solution to their inconvenient attachment to me. The calculated cruelty of this realization transformed something within me. The devastated husband began receding, replaced by someone colder and more strategic. Over the next 5 days, I met with estate attorneys, financial advisors, and a private investigator. I opened new accounts at different banks, began transferring assets, and documented everything related to the affair. I arranged consultations with 3 different oncologists seeking second opinions on treatment options that might extend my prognosis, however slightly. My physical condition deteriorated during this period. The cancer symptoms intensified, with pain requiring stronger medication and fatigue making even basic tasks challenging. Yet mentally, I grew stronger and more focused. I developed a comprehensive, methodical plan to protect myself and ensure that Amanda and Jack would not benefit from my death. After a week of silence, I sent Amanda a brief message saying I needed more time. Her response was immediate and desperate, begging for a chance to explain. I did not reply, instead, using the breathing room to finalize my strategy. The private investigator confirmed that Jack had been staying at our house every night since my disappearance, lending additional strength to my position. 2 weeks after my diagnosis, I made the calculated decision to return home. This would allow me access to important documents and personal items while implementing the next phase of my plan. I informed Amanda I would be coming back the following day, deliberately choosing a time when I knew Jack would be at work. The tearful reunion she had clearly planned fell flat when confronted with my emotionless demeanor. I explained that I had received a serious medical diagnosis the day I found them together without specifying details. The color drained from her face, guilt and fear warring in her expression. I told her I needed space and stability to deal with my health issues, suggesting we table discussion of their betrayal until I had processed my medical situation. Her relief was palpable and somewhat disgusting. She immediately transformed into the picture of a devoted wife, offering to accompany me to appointments and researching treatment options. The performance would have been impressive if I had not seen the text she sent Jack when I was in the shower that same evening. He came back. Says he is sick. This might work out timing-wise after all. Just stay away for now. I began implementing my plan systematically. First, I transferred my remaining stocks and investment accounts to my younger sister in a legitimate gift arrangement Thomas had structured. I revised my will and all beneficiary designations, directing my assets to a foundation for cancer research. I sold my ownership stake in Tetra Tech to Westlake Digital, Jack's largest competitor, ensuring that not only would he not inherit my position, but he would face a strengthened rival. At home, I played the role of a husband, focused entirely on his medical battle. I spoke vaguely about promising experimental treatments and maintained a facade of cautious optimism that Amanda eagerly embraced. Meanwhile, I installed a comprehensive security system throughout our house with cameras in every room except the bathrooms, all feeding to secure cloud storage only I could access. The evidence accumulated quickly. During my treatment days, when Amanda believed I was safely occupied for hours, Jack would visit. They were careful, but not careful enough. I documented everything, building an irrefutable case, while appearing increasingly frail and distracted. I discovered they had been accessing my medical portal, reviewing my lab results and doctor notes. They researched my life insurance policy and the payout conditions. They even discussed renovations to our home they would make after I was gone, all while Amanda played the devoted caretaker in my presence, her mask never slipping. After 3 months of meticulous documentation and preparation, I was ready for the final phase. My cancer had progressed as predicted, leaving me visibly thinner and often in pain, but I had timed my move perfectly. I still had the strength to execute what needed to be done. I chose a Tuesday evening when I knew Jack was coming over supposedly to drop off work documents. I had told Amanda I would be at a late medical appointment, but instead parked down the street and waited until Jack arrived. I gave them 30 minutes together before entering my own home with my key. The confrontation was cinematically perfect. I walked calmly into our bedroom, where they lay together, a folder of documents in my hand. Before they could speak, I informed them that I had known everything from the beginning. I activated my phone screen, showing the security app with its multiple camera views of our home. I explained that I had 3 months of recorded evidence, including their conversations about my diagnosis and death. The shock on their faces was almost worth everything I had endured. Almost. I handed Amanda the folder containing divorce papers citing infidelity, complete with time-stamped evidence. I informed them that our prenuptial agreement contained an infidelity clause that her behavior had activated. I revealed that our home was actually owned by a trust controlled by my parents, who had signed it over to me privately just weeks ago. The final blow was showing them documentation of my business dealings, including the sale of my Tetra Tech shares to Westlake Digital, who had immediately implemented aggressive competitive strategies against Jack's division. His recent workplace struggles suddenly made sense to him, his expression revealing the moment he realized his career had been systematically undermined. Amanda attempted to salvage something, anything, switching tactics from denial to tears to anger to bargaining within minutes. I simply stated that she had 48 hours to remove her belongings from the house before the locks would be changed. When she demanded to know where she was supposed to go, I suggested she ask Jack, though I mentioned that his recent financial difficulties might complicate their living arrangements. Jack started threatening legal action until I played a specific recording of them discussing how they had deliberately concealed my symptoms from me, potentially delaying my diagnosis and treatment. The mention of potential criminal charges for medical neglect silenced him immediately. I watched them leave together, Amanda sobbing and Jack ashen-faced. The satisfaction I expected to feel was there, but hollow, overshadowed by the knowledge of how little time I likely had left. Still, I slept peacefully that night, for the first time since my diagnosis, in a home that was truly mine again. The day after Amanda and Jack left my house for good, I began focusing on my actual treatment options rather than the fictional promising therapies I had invented for their benefit. My oncologist had mentioned a clinical trial for an experimental immunotherapy treatment at the University of Washington Medical Center. With nothing to lose, I applied and was accepted as a participant. The irony was not lost on me when I received a call from my parents, concerned after receiving notification of the property transfer I had arranged through Thomas. I had not told them about my diagnosis or Amanda's betrayal, preferring to handle matters independently. Now forced to explain, I was surprised by their immediate decision to fly in from Arizona to support me. Their arrival marked the beginning of a support system I had not allowed myself during the months of executing my revenge plan. My younger sister Sophie joined them a week later, taking family leave from her position as a pediatric nurse in Chicago. The house that had recently been filled with betrayal and deception now held people who genuinely cared about my well-being. Updates about Amanda and Jack came through mutual acquaintances who knew nothing of my strategic maneuvering. They had moved into Jack's one-bedroom apartment, which he was now struggling to afford, given the professional difficulties mysteriously plaguing him. Amanda had been forced to take a lower-paying position after her previous firm downsized their marketing department. Their relationship was reportedly strained by financial stress and the abrupt change in circumstances. Meanwhile, I channeled my remaining energy into 3 areas: the immunotherapy treatment, setting up the Cancer Research Foundation that would eventually receive my assets, and volunteering at the hospital's Cancer Support Center when I felt strong enough. The last activity was initially suggested by my psychologist as a way to process my own diagnosis, but it quickly became the most meaningful part of my limited future. It was at the support center that I met Lisa Morgan, an oncology social worker with a calm demeanor and insightful perspective. Unlike the pity I saw in many people's eyes, Lisa offered understanding without condescension. Our professional relationship gradually evolved into friendship as she helped coordinate services for patients I had connected with through volunteering. 3 months into the clinical trial, my oncologist called with unexpected news. The latest scans showed my tumors had stopped growing, with some even showing minor reduction. While far from a remission, this represented a significantly better outcome than anticipated. For the first time, Dr. Patel mentioned the possibility of extending my initial prognosis. The treatment was brutal, leaving me nauseated and exhausted for days after each session. Yet knowing that Amanda and Jack would not benefit from my death gave me strength to endure the side effects. Sophie took temporary residence in one of the spare bedrooms, coordinating with our parents to ensure I was never alone after difficult treatment days. 5 months after our separation, Amanda appeared unannounced at my front door. She had lost weight, her designer clothes replaced by simpler attire. She had heard about my participation in the clinical trial from a mutual friend and wanted to check on me, she claimed. Her real motivation became clear when she mentioned having left Jack after discovering he had been seeing someone else. She suggested that perhaps fate had given us another chance, that my improved prognosis might be a sign we should reconsider our relationship. The emotional manipulation was transparent, especially when she mentioned her difficult financial situation and unstable housing arrangement. Looking at her, I felt nothing but a distant pity. The woman I had loved existed only in memories, replaced by this person willing to return to a dying man once her better option had disappeared. I told her simply that our chapter was closed permanently and asked her not to contact me again. Her parting words were that I had changed, become cold and unforgiving. She was right, but not in the way she meant. I had changed by refusing to remain a victim, by taking control of the time I had left. The coldness she perceived was simply the absence of the desperate need for her approval that had characterized our marriage. As my physical condition stabilized and occasionally improved, I began spending more time developing the foundation. With Thomas's guidance, I established the Reclaim Life Foundation, focused on providing practical support for cancer patients without family systems. The name held personal significance, acknowledging my own journey to reclaim control of my life from both disease and deception. Lisa became increasingly involved in the foundation's development, offering invaluable insights from her years working directly with patients. Our professional collaboration evolved naturally into deeper friendship. She knew my full story, including the calculated revenge against Amanda and Jack, yet never judged me for it. Instead, she helped me process the complex emotions that success in both treatment and revenge had created. 6 months after beginning treatment, a comprehensive scan revealed something the medical team called remarkable significant tumor regression in both my pancreas and metastatic sites. My case was presented at a medical conference as an unusual response to the experimental protocol. While still technically terminal, my prognosis had expanded from months to potentially years. The realization that I might live significantly longer than expected forced me to reevaluate my perspective. The revenge that had sustained me through the darkest period no longer seemed as important. The energy previously devoted to strategic planning against Amanda and Jack now went into building something meaningful with whatever time remained. Lisa and I began dating 9 months after my diagnosis, both of us acknowledging the complicated reality of my medical situation. She entered the relationship with open eyes, understanding that even with improved prognosis, our future contained significant medical challenges. Her willingness to embrace life alongside me without guarantees taught me more about love than 8 years with Amanda ever had. A year and a half after that devastating Tuesday, when I received both a terminal diagnosis and discovered my wife's betrayal, I received the news that seemed impossible. My condition had stabilized enough to be considered partial remission. While not cancer-free, the disease had retreated, significantly controlled by ongoing treatment. I later heard that Jack had relocated to Minneapolis after Tetra Tech downsized his entire division. Amanda had apparently moved back to her hometown in Oregon, working at her father's insurance company. Their brief attempt at building a life together had crumbled under the weight of financial pressure and mutual distrust. Looking back now, I recognize that my elaborate revenge plan did not heal me. It merely prevented additional wounds. The actual healing came from reconnecting with family, building the foundation, and eventually opening myself to authentic relationship with Lisa. The precious time I had nearly wasted on bitterness had transformed into something meaningful and generative. Today, the cancer remains part of my reality but no longer defines it. Regular treatments keep it at bay, while I focus on living fully in each moment. I have been granted beyond those initial 6 to 12 months. The foundation now helps hundreds of patients navigate the practical aspects of cancer treatment, providing services I desperately needed during my own darkest days. The ultimate lesson I learned through this journey is that while betrayal can destroy the life you thought you had, it cannot determine the life you choose to build from the ruins. Sometimes the most devastating diagnosis, both medical and marital, creates space for rebirth that would otherwise have been impossible. The end of one story can become the beginning of a better one if you refuse to surrender authorship of your remaining chapters. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal or devastating news? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey of reclaiming control resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of transformation. Share this video with someone who might need to be reminded that even our darkest moments can lead to unexpected new beginnings. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes what feels like the end is actually just the beginning of your most authentic life.